Hello, and welcome back to Weston the Historian. As you can see, I'm back in my regular location, not in my dorm anymore, which is great. So I don't have to see that anymore, which is great because that dorm was terrible. But anyway, so something that has been on my mind and something I wanted to talk about was how there's a really vast distinction between what architects like when they are designing buildings versus what the average person might prefer. So this has just been really interesting to me because I'm really into architecture. Excuse me, but I don't do architecture. I'm a history major and a classics minor, and as much as I think architecture is awesome, also seems a little intense, and I'm not a big math guy. Not that I dislike math, I just am not great with it. And I'm also not great with drawing. So, yeah, basically everything that goes into being an architect major or an architect in general, I don't fit the bill. So, I'll just keep making cool buildings in Minecraft and being like, maybe someday someone will be like, will have the same idea as me and put my buildings into some real architecture. But for now, I'm just a guy who likes architecture, but my own taste in architecture, I really like brutalism, I like rationalism, I like Art Deco. I like these more modern styles. I like Bauhaus or and what all these other like modern styles of architecture, which is not to say that I dislike older ones. It's just these ones catch my eye and are interesting to me, and I have whole books about them. And half my camera roll is random brutalist buildings that I thought were cool. Whenever I play Minecraft, I do brutalist stuff. And what I've noticed is that's what architects seem to like. Is architects seem to like these simplistic styles, and I don't like that term. So I'm going to define what I mean by simplistic, because this is a very overarching term, but it's kind of dismissive, and I just want to define what I mean. So when I say that, I mean stripped of ornamentation. The You're not going to see as much ornamentation on a brutalist building as you would on a Greek temple. The kinds of details you would see on a Greek temple do not exist in brutalism or other modern styles. They don't exist in internationalism or rationalism or all these other ism buildings, like whatever. So, eh, so that's what I'm essentially meaning when I say simplistic. You're not going to see as many super detailed materials, maybe, but especially the focus on ornamentation and even like details like pillars and roofs. You're not going to see super detailed, overly over the top ornamentation. You don't see that in these styles of architecture. So I wanted to talk about why that seems to be favored in modernism, and not just modernism, but also by architects in general. Because I know a lot of architect majors, and I've seen their drawings and their renderings and their models, and it all looks like that. It all looks like stuff that your average person is going to scoff at and be like, that's ugly, that's stupid. Why do architects do this stupid, ugly stuff? And I'm here to talk about that. So, why do architects favor simplicity? It's fairly simple. Very simple reason is that the focus on these more simplistic styles of architecture is on the architect themselves and on the building itself. So the focus of a Greek temple is maybe more so on what the sculptor is doing, or what the maybe even what the construction workers are doing, what the engineers are doing, what the painter is doing, what the statue carver is doing. That is the focus of a Greek temple. You're noticing these details that the architect might not have had the capability to produce. Many of them could, but the focus is less on the actual building itself. So you're not noticing the shape of the building. You're not noticing the dimensions of the building. You're noticing the ornamentation. And that's not necessarily what the architect is doing. Those are added on by other people who are not architects. And that is why architects, in my opinion, favor these more simplistic styles because the focus is entirely on what the architect is doing. So when an architect is drawing up a plan for a house, for a residential building, for a public space, they are thinking, how can I make this stand out in a way that focuses on the building itself, that makes the building interesting, so I don't have to rely on other people to make it look interesting. Because that's the big drawback of these more traditional styles of architecture is as soon as you strip it of all the ornamentation, it kind of loses some of the interest. A lot of it just looks like a box. So what architects do is they're like, well, let's just do that. Let's just make boxes, and then we'll make those boxes look interesting, but as an architect. So they go and make Bauhaus things where it's like very boxy, but they're doing interesting things with these boxes, and it's entirely focused on the building itself as opposed to ornamentation. So that is simply put why I think architects seem to favor this more simplistic style. It's why I personally have a uh, big interest in the style because it is focusing on the genius of the architect as opposed to the genius of the sculptor or the painter or the gardener or whoever else is adding on to the building. So the building stands alone and it forces the viewer to focus entirely on that and to critique the building itself. So when a passerby is looking at a brutalist building, they're going, "Gosh, it's so ugly. It looks like a box. The concrete is so ugly. The shape is so weird." And it's like, okay, you're critiquing the building itself. And that's what the architect wants you to do. They want you to critique the building. They want you to critique them and their work as opposed to what some other artist could be doing. So when that same passerby looks at a Greek temple, they're like, wow, there's so much cool detail on this pillar. The flower shape of the marble looks so cool. The statues on the roof look so cool. The roof, the way it's slanted, is so cool. This is cool. This is beautiful. And the focus is less on the building itself, the shape of the building, the dimensions of the building, what the architect was doing, and entirely on the ornamentation, which the architect might not be doing. So, anyway, those are my thoughts, and I hope you found that kind of interesting. I hope that enlightened someone, and I hope that that explained to you why your friend likes brutalism. So, anyway, thank you.